Hiya, this is Jenny from Just Being Me, and you're listening to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast, the show that inspires you to put yourself first.
Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness. Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness.
Welcome back to our podcast, and today we are with the very, very lovely Andrea Clare. How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm very well, thank you, Jenny.
Good. Now, as you know, we have our guests on here who inspire us with their stories from when they had their moment of, aha, I need to change something in my world because I'm just not feeling so good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your moment?
Well, I've had sort of minor aha moments throughout life.
I think we all do, don't we?
Where, I've kind of changed direction slightly. But my aha, I had a couple of aha moments, major aha moments in 2022. So that's when, life changed dramatically for me. And as a result, I'm on a completely different path, and I'm a very much happier person than I was previously.
So do you think that changing your path in 2022, because, we just, 2022 was where we were just all really coming out of COVID properly, weren't we? Do you think it was the COVID that made that decision for you?
Partly, because in lockdown, because, we were just, we didn't really have a great deal to do. I was able to get back to being creative, I suppose. And what actually transpired initially in 2022 was that I think I was coming towards the end of the perimenopause, but I didn't realize I was in perimenopause, or in menopause for that matter. And I'd been having a really horrendous time. I was in a very sorry state. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I had early onset dementia, all the things that a lot of women, experience. And I didn't know why.
And we laugh.
We laugh.
It isn't a laughable experience.
No, it isn't laughable because I was,
like you, I went to the doctors and said, I think I've got early onset dementia.
Yeah.
I can't believe that menopause can make you feel like that.
Yeah.
So
I went to the doctors. I suppose it must have been about 10 years ago. I was having very dark thoughts, and there was absolutely no mention of the menopause. It was just, oh, you're depressed. Well, we'll give you some medication to tackle that, but there was no mention of the menopause, and that's partly because they're just not educated regarding the menopause. But thankfully, that is, there is a change afoot. So I worked out what was wrong with me. Or what, not wrong with me, but it was what was happening to me.
Happening to you.
And I was able to take appropriate steps. I became informed. And then there was an online, a free tutorial on Instagram, and it was to paint a flower with watercolours. And I'd never used watercolours before. And I thought, oh, I've got a wee set of watercolours somewhere. It was actually my mum's, although she wasn't an artist. She'd bought them to illustrate some calligraphy work she was doing. And I did this, and I created this flower. And I thought, actually, that was quite straightforward, and it looked decent. I thought I'd always sort of doodled on and off, and I'd pencil sketched dogs that I'd owned. Well, I never ever thought they were any good. And I thought, I'm going to paint a dog. And I had a practice run, and then somebody in a Facebook group had a very poorly dog, and she was looking for the dog to be photographed and to be pampered. And I thought, I really need to paint that dog. So I did. I painted the dog, and I became friends with the lady. I gifted the portrait to her, and she was, delighted. And the little dog has since passed away. And that's when my business, Sacha and Friends, became, because I then put a shout out, said, look, would anybody else like their dog painted? And of course, or their pet painted? And I got lots of requests. And, the rest is history. I've been painting pet portraits for 2.5 years now. That is one of my ventures is called Sacha and Friends. So I thought, this is what I need to be doing. I want to be doing art, because I'd had experiences of taking part in a couple of public art trails, but I thought it was all luck. I didn't think that there was any talent involved in what I created. And I've loved the experience of doing that. And I thought, right, I want to do art, but how am I going to make a living doing art? And then I also had this thing where I wanted to help women with the menopause. I wanted to educate them, and so that they didn't suffer in the way that I was suffering. So I then connected with a creative business mentor, and we came up with the idea, right, I can combine the two. So that's what I did. I created my menopause art program. And it's, that was the major shift. I still work part-time, but my future is all about helping women with the menopause, and using art to do that, and also creating my own art as well.
So what was it about the menopause that pulled you so far down with the job you were doing? Why did that not allow you to? Was it the actual job that was making you feel? What was it? Was it menopause?
Well, I went. The menopause phase was a really difficult phase for me in life, because I was a full-time mum after I'd been made redundant in the corporate world, and I took the decision to take some time out to be a full-time mum to my 3 kids. And then my mum passed away, and she had been my creative inspiration, although she wasn't an artist, but she taught me lots of creative things when I was young. My mum passed away, and then 6 months later, my husband announced that he was leaving. Right. So I was sort of contending with the menopause unbeknownst to me. And then obviously the emotion of my mum passing away, and then everything, all the fallout from my husband leaving. And so, it was a difficult phase in life. There's no two ways about it.
I'm so sorry you went through any of it, but having it together, doesn't a bit of a breathing space, does it?
No, and I'm one of these people that I just get on with things. I think a lot of women do. I'm very resilient, and my focus was on making sure the children were okay. Then obviously we had lockdown as well, which gave us a bit of breathing space. But then that also brought with it other complications. But when I realized that I was menopausal, I saw the first Davina McCall documentary. When I realized that was why I was feeling the way I was, in addition to all these other emotions I was feeling, it was like, right, okay, I can tackle that. I know that there's a way to deal with that. And I now know, because I'm far more educated now, I know that lots of different ways to tackle the menopause. But it's a time for reflection, I think, as well, the menopause, because you're going to be menopausal for the rest of your life, or postmenopausal for the rest of your life. But it's a turning point for women, because it's a time when, if you've got children, they are leaving home normally, it's potentially empty nest syndrome. It could be that you're reviewing your career choice, and you may be experiencing things in your relationship, some of which are made worse by the menopause.
But it's also a time to, as you just said, reflect. Mm-hmm. Because I think as women, we lose our sense of self when we have babies, because we don't get a choice in the fact that the baby's screaming in the middle of the night. It needs feeding. That has to happen. You can't just go, I'm really tired, I'll do that in a little bit. You don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning of us losing our sense of self as an individual and becoming mum. And I think, I know a lot of my clients, it's in that stage of when they've had children for at least a few years where they're starting to think, who am I? Who am I? and that
Yes.
gets exacerbated even more when your children get to the age where they don't really need you anymore. You now don't need to be that mum. And it's, who am I?
Yes. Well, definitely. And I mean, I did things a little bit back to front in that I was a late mum.
Mhm.
So I actually, my children came along in my early 40s. My children were adopted as well. So I just like my life to be super complicated. And I'd gone from, I was all about my career. And then I was loving being a mum. That was great. But then equally, I went back to my career as well. I was working part-time. And then I was made redundant. So I lost my career as well. I think, that is a big thing for a lot of women.
That's still a huge grief, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
losing anything from your life is a grieving process.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and then, you could be, you're in a working environment as well, as you are in the menopause years where you've got, all these young women coming in, and that's great, but you actually start thinking, well, yeah, I've got all this great experience and everything, but I'm having to take on board all this new information, tech and what have you. And, I think it is a time of reevaluation. And I think it's an exciting time to think, right, well, what do I want to do?
Absolutely. And I do think that as you're older, you are more capable of sitting down and going, who am I? What am I? What do I want to do? As you just said, I think it's a really, now I'm out of the awful menopause symptoms. I love this period of my life. This is probably one of my happiest periods of my life because I know who I am. I know who I want to be. I know where I'm going. I know what I want to feel. There's a lot more knowing about this age, I think.
Yeah. And also a lot more, I can't say that because that's a double negative. I think, you're less caring about in the sense of you don't care what people think about you, so I always had this thing in my head that I wanted to be a bit bohemian and wear long floaty dresses like artists do, even though I didn't consider myself an artist. Well, I now do that. And, I don't care if people think it's, crazy that I'm sitting on a train full of people in black and I'm the one in lots of colour.
Yeah.
Because, that's the true me,
But you see, when I see that, I have a friend who is extremely colourful and she just wears colour to give cheer. She loves it. It cheers her up. And when I see that, I just think, yeah, go you. Thank you for bringing that colour into my life. Because I love really strong colours, but I find myself just dressing in less, it's about the greys and the blacks. And I'm really, really now just going, okay, no. In fact, I've got a beautiful pink jumper coming my way, bright pink jumper.
Oh, nice. I know. I mean, I'm not very colourful today, actually, which is ironic. But my mum was quite colourful, actually. And I see a lot of my mum in myself with that in that respect. But yeah, I think it's a phase of life to be embraced for sure. And
but that can be hard for some people because, the menopause symptoms are not easy to get through. And it can be hard for some people. But it's looking like you've been able to embrace that by embracing your creative side.
Yeah. And I know that, the benefit that women get from just taking some time out for themselves and, getting creative. You don't have to be super talented. I mean, art is very subjective anyway. So you might think that because I used to think what I did wasn't any good, but it's all about the process. It's about taking time out for you, focusing on what you're creating rather than all the other stuff that's going on in your life. So yeah. And, I say to women, there's lots of ways that you can deal with what's going on with you when you're menopausal, whether that be going down the route of HRT, going down the supplementation route, lifestyle changes, which are essential, but you need to take time out for you to do something that you enjoy. And, you may not want to create art, but you can be creative in lots of other ways.
Absolutely. And I think I would say that's an essential process for everybody. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you need to do something that lights you up every single day.
Definitely, because when you're busy looking after your children, you tend to neglect the things that used to light you up when you were younger. I saw a very interesting interview with a presenter called Fern Cotton. No, it was Fern Britton, and she was saying that when you're a mum and when you get married and everything, she says you unwittingly give away your power, and she says it's not a bad thing; it's a choice because you become a mother. You become a partner. But she said, as you get older, it's almost like you're taking that power back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can be you again. And you can, think about what lights me up, So yeah.
Isn't it? Because when my children were young, I often used to sit down and colour with them in the colouring books, not doing my own art, but just sitting colouring. And I'd get so lost in the process.
I know.
And often I'd look around and suddenly think, I'm the only one at this table colouring. And they've got I'm the only one colouring. And so I stopped colouring.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look at it and think, because I now do colouring in what's called adult colouring books, which it's just smaller pictures, isn't it? More intricate pictures, if you like, because I know that it calms me down. It gives me time for me. It's a creative process. It's not necessarily that if I said that I'm going to draw a picture, I'd probably get overwhelmed with how's that? Whereas picking up a set of colouring pencils or felt tips and just filling in spaces for me is amazing, especially things like Mandelas. It's a really beautiful creative process that actually just brings me right back down.
Definitely.
It really does. So, creativity, if you feel you can't draw, it doesn't mean to say that you can't do art, if you like.
That's right. Definitely not. And I'm completely self-taught. And when I work with women, I actually take them through the creation process step by step, because I've made a decision as to what we're going to create. One of the things we actually do create is mandalas. And so they don't have that concern or worry of what am I going to create. The only decision they might need to make is what colours are we going to use, because that's a personal choice. But yeah, it's just, I look back at when I was younger, and I was at my happiest when I was being creative. I used to love colour by numbers, paint by numbers as well. And it's because I've also in 2022, I discovered that I have ADHD. It quietens my ADHD brain as well.
And I think those years, that the 2021, 22, 23 were a big year for older women. When I say older in the best possible terms, but we weren't identified as ADHD at school.
No.
So we were later identified. So, and that makes a big difference, knowing that actually a lot of the stuff that's going on in your head, is due to neurodiversity. And as you say, the colouring in is a calming process. It brings your sense back down. And what you said about the only choice that somebody needs to make is about colours is an interesting one, because very often when I work with my clients, a lot of them won't know what their favourite colours are, because it's quite a normal question to say, what's your favourite colour? But if you've lost yourself so much that you don't know what your favourite colour is, doing something like colouring in identifies, because you find that you go back to the same type of colours, don't you?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many beautiful colours out there. I've got a set of pencils actually that a friend gave me, and she actually gave it to my daughter with a colouring book, because she decided that colouring in wasn't for her for whatever reason. Anyway, I ended up with the pencils, and it's so many different colours. It's just beautiful. And I've worked with women where we do an exercise called Colour the Menopause, and they're like, "Oh, I don't really like colouring in." So I was like, "Well, just go with it. Trust me." And we actually pick colours that represent how we feel about the menopause or how we feel about a particular symptom. And I watch these women who, like I say, "Oh, well, I'm not into colouring in," and they're like transfixed, and they're so engrossed in what they're doing, and they're so proud of what they create as well. And, the process of picking the colours for them is so enjoyable. So
it's an interesting thing how we can shut down something like, I don't really like colouring in, before we even tried colouring in as an adult.
yeah,
It's an interesting process again, isn't it? Of how we shut these things down.
yeah. I'm not creative. I couldn't possibly learn to do embroidery or,
Yeah, and I can't draw, I can't paint. It's us of all of those where actually it isn't about what the final thing is, it's the process of doing it, isn't it?
That's it. And the benefit you derive from that. And if you're working alongside other women, you're part of a community, and, you're going to have discussions possibly about the menopause, or even about, what you're creating. It's just a lovely environment working, and I really enjoy it. So yeah,
it's changed your life.
Oh, radically. I am just, I'm a completely different person to the person I was, 8 years ago when my mum passed away. Yeah, I'm just, and, because I wasn't allowed to go down the creative route, and, I was in a bit of a quandary at school because I was creative, but I was also really good at maths and languages. So I went down more that route. But no, it's where I need to be, where I want to be. And I'm really excited for next year, as we were talking about next year.
2025. What about?
Yeah. And, it's allowed me to meet so many lovely women as well.
Yeah, people you wouldn't necessarily have met.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. People come into your life for a reason, don't they?
They do.
And things happen for a reason. Although you're putting it out to the universe, and by manifesting it. But yeah, I was meant to do that reach tutorial, which then led me on to doing painting pets. And, the rest is history, as they say.
And here you are now. Thank you so much for coming along today and talking to us about how art's changed your life. You've spoken a lot about what you do with people to lead them through. And if anybody wants to get in contact, all of the details for everything will be below the podcast. So
Fantastic.
In the comment section. So you'll be able to make contact with Andrea and get to know a little bit more. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah. And I always say to people, just feel free to get in touch. There's no commitment. If somebody's struggling, I'm here to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Jenny.
Are you feeling stuck? Do you want to be able to create a better conversation with yourself, but just don't know where to start? I offer a free 20-minute session to see where you want to be and how to get you there. Just click on the link below. Remember, it's free. Book your space. It could change your life. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.